We are at the Hope Global Forum talking to some of the biggest leaders in business, one of the hottest cities for business. We want to continue the conversation, pick up with where you were on this news overnight. Kat Cole is with us, COO and president of Focus Brands. Of course, parent company of brands like Moe's, Southwest Grill, Cinnabon, Auntie Anne's Pretzels, and my favorite, Cinnabon, and Jamba Juice, of course. But where I want to go with this is you're 6,000 locations around the world, 50 countries. You're in Mexico. You're in China. Yeah. You wake up to this news and you think, what?
Barely had my coffee yet.
Yeah.
The question is, how is it going to play out? We've learned over time not to overreact to these things. We have a large enough corporation where we can buy and secure supply in a reasonable way to protect for volatility.
And this is more of a for you guys, it's going to be more of a supply story in terms of getting those avocados here. Rather than necessarily the locations you have in Mexico right now.
Absolutely, yeah. Right now, it will be more about cost of supply, and then as a result, what do we promote and what's the pricing strategy around it as costs rise?
So will there be a conference call or phone call today about shifts or changes in that supply chain?
I would imagine our supply chain and purchasing group will be very busy today.
And what does that look like? Just walk us through that, because that's going to be happening not just at your company, but perhaps at small businesses and large ones around the country.
Yeah, so different than for a small business who's probably on the phone with their local supply guy if they're reading the news saying, what is this going to mean for me? For us, because we have so many brands and an infrastructure where we actually collaboratively procure supply, it will be a bit of a more sophisticated conversation where we talk to our purchasing group, our core suppliers, people around the world where we get product. And a lot of our product is sourced domestically for our domestic locations, but certainly avocados, as you mentioned, and a few others come straight from Mexico.
What else would be on the list? In the food world?
Well,
because this is going to
produce.
Hit McDonald's, is going to hit
you're
all the biggies.
Produce is going to be a big one. So whether it's strawberries, mangoes, other types of citrus fruits, that's going to be a main import coming in from Mexico. We source a ton from Arizona and California, but certainly Mexico is a part of that supply.
Do you look at that as a potential net benefit long-term to the U.S., or do you say to yourself, oh, this is going to help the farmers, or do you say, actually, this is a real problem?
I think it's going to create, like all things that are this volatile and sort of out of nowhere, some winners on one side and some losers on the other. On the restaurant side, in the short term, if you're a larger organization like us, in the short term, there's not a lot of pain. We've secured supply, but in the long term, it creates some questions around menu, innovation, and pricing.
Okay, but what about your position as a company that is entering new markets around the world? I'm thinking about China. Now we're on to a different tariff trade story. You have a huge business in the Middle East, which we should talk about. In terms of where the United States is and how you feel like you as a company are therefore being perceived when you walk into these new markets, how has it changed?
Over time, certainly the discussion around the United States, American brands, and then the politics associated with it have come more into the forefront than they ever have been. It was never a discussion 10 years ago when we were opening locations internationally. Today, it is a bit more, but
what are those? When you say those discussions, what are those discussions like? Meaning, you go into you want to open a store in Beijing, and the answer is different. How?
The answer isn't different today for opening a store. There are different discussions with franchisees around the geopolitical climate, imports, tariffs, costs of doing business. But as it relates to the core consumer that loves our brands in China, in the Middle East, in South and Central America, that piece isn't changing. They still love giant cinnamon rolls and delicious smoothies and savory pretzels, and there's still a love for American brands today.
But the idea that you are an icon of the United States, still a positive. I just want to.
Yeah, I will tell you, it's not slowing down franchise sales today. Our brands are growing more globally than they ever have underneath our organization. So there are certainly more conversations on the back channel and over a coffee with owners. But as it relates to the core business proposition, no, the brands are still low.
Two very quick questions, because Uber announced their earnings last night. Uber Eats has become a huge component of that business. How do you think that changes your business?
It is changing our business radically. The consumer being willing to pay what it costs to get product delivered, and that not being just a coastal or an urban thing, but an everywhere thing. It's not just a young person's thing, but an everyone's thing.
Would you be betting on Uber Eats versus Postmates versus, there's a whole list of them now.
I know, Grubhub, Postmates, DoorDash.
Who do you want to be in business with?
The two big players are the ones that right now we're really leaning into. So Uber Eats, DoorDash have the most coverage and the most growth. But Postmates is a nice hold on the West Coast, and we've got a lot of West Coast-based businesses.
Kat, I know you're here talking about inclusive capitalism.
Yeah.
We have not been inclusive enough to be able to talk about that this morning, but I know we will a little bit later in this broadcast. But I want to thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.